Welcome to the She Births Show, a place to inspire your birth, evolve your parenting, and help you live a life you love. I'm Nadine Richardson, your host and creator of the scientifically verified birth education program, She Births. I'm also a mother, yoga teacher, doula, author, and speaker. At She Births, we have supported thousands of families around the world for over 13 years with our unique program, and our vision is to make birth better for every family around the world so that everyone experiences a beautiful birth no matter what unfolds. Not only do we help people have beautiful births, but we also give them the skills and the philosophy to enjoy pregnancy and make parenting easier. As well as our world-class birth ed, taken either face-to-face or online, in our app, we also have a free pregnancy guide designed to help you feel calm, connected, and inspired as you and your baby grow. We have a doula matching service, the perfect way to ensure you and your partner are completely supported throughout the whole journey. And we have our Soul Mama Circles, which are the perfect postpartum network to help optimize your mindset and design your life in parenthood. Remember, if you like what you hear today, subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. If you're a parent, about to be one, fellow health professional, join us now for an inspirational deep dive into topics with experts around the globe. We hope you enjoy this special episode. Today's podcast is with Cristina and Damian, a wonderful She Births couple that gave birth on a houseboat in San Francisco. They both did a huge amount of psychological and spiritual work in preparation for not only birth, but their relationship and parenting. They still, however, had moments in birth and breastfeeding of it feeling like absolute hell. Doing the work does not mean we don't face challenges, but rather, in my experience, that we are prepared to face the challenges and we have the tools to pass through them with more grace, more ease, more resources, and a better understanding, a broader perspective. We open the podcast with Cristina and Damian's love story because who doesn't love a great COVID love story? We talk about the differences and similarities between the Australian and American hospital systems and discuss iatrogenic harm, which is morbidity and mortality that occurs within and because of hospital systems. We discuss childbirth as a spiritual initiation and mention Kundalini and awakening. We talk about the importance of feeling safe during birth and listening to your body for that information as you're making decisions in the lead up to birthing, plus healing from sexual trauma. Damian shares his personal preparation for parenthood and being a part of the Mankind Project. He talks about how the soul of his baby reached out to him prior to conception, how fathers can be an amazing support in labour even while they're feeling fear and uncertainty and have this feeling of an inability to do anything at all. We talk about a powerful use of the incantation yes during labour, plus very challenging supply and diagnostic issues while breastfeeding. We discuss healing from our inherited beliefs, the power of softening, and developing a more embodied presence. Plus more of what I call superpowers and gifts that we gather from our birth. This month, I am really excited to have launched a new offering that's been in the making for a long time. I call Birth Harvesting. This is birth debriefing with a difference. A bit like these deeper conversations we have on the podcast, but obviously private, more personalised, insightful, and clarifying. Women say that debriefing with me allows everything to finally make sense and gives them a sense of courage to move forward without fear or anxiety, feeling like they're being held back. Harvesting is not just what happened, but why it happened. Both the external and the internal causations, and it is how it can be different next time. Is definitely an essential part to go through this harvesting process if we're preparing for subsequent births. I believe that birth, whether it works out as we imagined or not, is a portal to discover more about ourselves and our unique gifts that we give to the world, because how we live is how we labour. The red thread of our matrilineal lines is also our creative force. But this energy and narrative is usually tangled with traumas and beliefs, conditioning and stories that no longer serve us. And in truth, they were never our own to begin with. It's up to each of us to do that work. For some, the red thread can take a lifetime to unravel, but for most, it is a tangled ball of wool that's passed down to the next generation only to become even more tangled. Birth harvesting sessions are an invitation to clear and to heal, to stop that continual epigenetic trauma, to process not only in the mind, but also in the body, the heart and the soul. Fully understanding and integrating the wisdom from our birth has repercussions for our lives, for our future dreams, for ourselves, for our children, and changes all of our relationships. You can read more about birth harvesting on the SheBirths website or on my personal website, which is going through an upgrade, nadinerichdson.com. I want to thank you all so much for being a part of this precious SheBirths community of awakening mothers and birth workers and families committed to making life richer and more beautiful. I really look forward to sharing birth harvesting and more of my new offerings, my new heart and soul work with you in the coming months and years ahead. Damian and Cristina, welcome to the SheBirths show.
Hi, Dean.
It's good to have you, firstly, on this side of the world, all the way from San Francisco, having a little bit of a break with Grandma in the Northern Rivers, just up the road from me. And I'm very excited to, be sharing your story today and to be diving deep into a conversation with two people that are not afraid of going into deep conversations in any way. Two amazing coaches who have leapt forth into the land of love and leapt forth wholeheartedly into the land of birth and postpartum. And I think you have a lot of richness to probably share. And I think we pulled, for those people who are listening, we pulled an archetypal card before we started. And I'm kind of guessing the medallion is a bit of what we pass on to others, energetically. So potentially this conversation is a medallion. That's what I'm feeling.
I hope so, because I really felt, that was something that was very strong throughout the pregnancy, was this sense of the passing on of knowledge and the sharing of experiences between couples, between families, and I felt especially the resonance with other women. And that's definitely, my intention in being here, just getting back to the sacredness, I suppose, of women sharing stories. And I think Damian's voice in that is a really beautiful kind of mirror to the feminine experience as well.
Yeah, and that men actually have their own story in birth. It's not just the woman that goes through it. The man, the husband also goes through their own transformation, their own journey.
Totally. So it was that I love that you've just brought it into intentionality already. So that's your intention, Cristina. And is that your intention, Damian, in being here? What do you feel is your intention?
My intention is to really just share how powerful my experience was and how beautiful the entire process was, from finding out that we were having a baby to the entire pregnancy to the actual birth, and how powerful that was to be there with Cristina as she went through every contraction, and our son eventually coming out and blinking his eyes open, and everything that's come since then, all the way to him now at 10 months old taking his first steps.
Yay. It's so cool. It's so beautiful. Well, do you guys want to start, with pregnancy, or do we need to give a little context? Because you do have a pretty cool love story. Do you want to give us an abbreviated, like how you guys met and how quickly it all happened? I love a love story.
Yeah. I like to say that we met online, which is technically true, but not what people expect.
Uh-huh.
So we met through Zoom, not through a dating app. We actually met through Zoom. During the pandemic, we were both in a coaching certification course, which had been moved online because we couldn't meet in person. And we met in this container of about 25 people, learning about each other, coaching each other, sharing all our desires, all our fears, sharing where we find beauty in the world. And what was really special about our meeting is that I feel like our souls were able to meet before our physical bodies met. And once our physical bodies met, everything kind of caught up. Mm-hmm. But we spent about a year together online before we met in person.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So at the end of this coaching course, I'm kind of always the one who likes to organize the parties. So the lockdown had been lifted in Australia, the borders had been opened, and I was like ready to party. So I was like, okay, well, we'll come over, I'll come over to the US and we'll get together with our cohort of coaches. And, but I felt that there was something there with Damian. And the first time that we had, connected just one-on-one as part of this course, I had this really amazing vision of like a snake going up my spine and flicking at the base of my skull. And there's this story of the Kundalini rising that's, as you know, is linked to awakening. And this, one of many, many people in a long chain who have somehow experienced this vision. And yeah, I had always been quite scared of my own spirituality because I thought, going into things that are not concrete and real, in a kind of dimensional way, it's kind of like a loss of reality. I was afraid. But in truth, when it happened, it just felt like really lighthearted, like, oh, that's weird. I wonder why that happened. So when I went over to California, I thought maybe we'll have, from this, conversations have developed, and I felt this feeling with Damian, and I thought maybe that I'd have a holiday romance and, kind of fun time over there. And 8 days later, our baby incarnated. And I felt something actually, like in my womb. And I said to Damian, I think I might be pregnant. And you said, you remember?
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, no, that can't be.
I said, if you're pregnant, that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, how can that be? How can you be okay with that? It's so wild. But we just felt so much love between us, and we'd already decided by that point that we were to be one another's person. So, beautiful. Yeah, when we discovered that we were expecting our boy, we thought, makes sense. Just felt like he'd been waiting for a long time for us to get together, and he couldn't wait a moment longer. Yeah.
I often say that it was his decision, that he had been waiting for us. Yeah. And that he decided that now was the time, and he wasted no time.
I agree with that. Often it really is children that are bringing together certain people and orchestrating. When you think about how some babies are conceived, under certain circumstances, it's pretty profound how they find their way through sometimes. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a beautiful story. And then did you stay on in San Francisco then, Cristina?
yeah, so I told everybody, oh, I'm having a nice time, I'm just going to extend. But actually, I was totally pregnant and just trying to figure out what we're going to do. And then we kind of were between the two countries of like, okay, well, this is unfolding and we better buckle up. And, how are we going to make this happen? So we started with, medical care in the US, and then came back to Australia in March. So we got together in January, came back to Australia in March, and had this feeling of like, oh, we're going to have the baby here. And from this experience between the two countries and trying to figure that out, I think that's how I became quite interested in systems around birth, and just sensing what's it like in the US. If we're going to have this baby in the US, how is that going to be different to Australia? And yeah, this is where my understanding of this very medicalized and very capitalist model in America, where I think there are really wonderful integrative doctors. I think you can get some of the best integrative care in the world in the US. And at the same time, you get care that is very oriented around a commercial model.
Yeah. Overprescribing, overtreatment, overuse of surgery. Third biggest killer in America is iatrogenic harm that exists inside the system from mishaps or a cascade of intervention. Third biggest killer, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always felt throughout this journey that the medical system, I often felt that the pregnancy and the birth was being managed instead of cared for.
Yeah.
And what we were searching for was care, somebody that really cared for our experience and our child and our well-being.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. When we had the first appointment with our obstetrician there, who actually was a really great partner for us as our journey unfolded. We had a 10-minute appointment, and she basically said, congratulations, any questions? And those were our appointments, the whole time throughout the pregnancy. And I was really surprised because I thought, aren't you going to talk me through this, girlfriend? And the really helpful thing that she did was actually say to me, I think, you're in America as a, new immigrant to the US. You don't have your family around and it's your first baby. I think you should get a doula. And of course I was like, what's a doula? But there was part of me that was surprised that she was suggesting that as well, because my understanding was she was going to be the one to support me through this process. Yeah, so that actually was a helpful prompt, a super helpful prompt for me to go and actually look into getting the kind of care that that we felt was worthy of this experience. And with these notions of spirituality that I had emerging in myself as well, I really felt that birth was a spiritual invitation. And I wanted that. I wanted someone who could hold me in that. And so I began this process of looking for someone who understood birth in that way, and could be a guide to us and a facilitator and a mentor. And of course then I hope this is universal for women, but this kind of, I had this feeling of like this floodgates opening of women just stepping up to be there for me and support me and share resources. And my friend Katya, who introduced us to your course, and also to the books that have been really helpful to her, among which Ina May Gaskin, which I feel is like the gateway drug for her. And almost like it's like the opening for me to feeling empowered in the process of birth.
Yeah.
So I would say those two things together, the first thing I did with you was I was like, I'm going to listen to 100% of Nadine's podcasts. So I just drive around to these various appointments and listen to the women that have been part of your community, and what their experiences have been. And at the same time, I was reading Ina May and became very interested in an alternative way of giving birth that didn't feel like a transaction.
Yeah. You didn't feel like packing up and moving to the farm?
I did look into like how far's the drive to Tennessee.
I know. Yeah, their stats aren't as good as the book. Those stats are the best in the world. You know what they have then? It's like less than 1% C-section rate. They're not the same anymore, because I think, what we've realized is the system is not built to care. It's built, as you say, to manage labour. It doesn't think about birth as a spiritual initiation or even an emotional experience. And doctors aren't trained in empathy. It's shown in studies that when, say, a doctor begins their medical training, they can have a relatively high degree of empathy, but by the end of their training, they have very little, almost none. It's kind of beat out of them from the exhaustion and the rote learning and the control of insurance companies and big pharma and all these sorts of things. And then the midwives often talk about, how traumatized they are from going to university and learning about physiological birth, and then arriving in the delivery suites of hospitals and seeing everything that is completely incongruous to normal birth and what they've studied as the gold standard of care, and completely traumatized by the harm that they're seeing inflicted upon women. And so this is what we have at the moment. That's, yesterday was the beginning of the birth trauma inquiry, parliamentary birth trauma inquiry in Australia, and this is just some of the things, they alluded to. And so, we've got this kind of problem with the systems, but what we also have is that women are coming, and fathers, partners are coming into birth with their cultural kind of baggage and their own family baggage and their own personal experiences, potentially of trauma, that are all going to play out in birth. So birth is this confluence of so many things. It's, I talk about it as being, not just a psychosomatic experience, it's a psychosomatic, sexual, karmic, family of origin, cultural, contextual, experience. I think there's another word I sometimes put in there. So I know you guys really, even though, you had this conception within 8 days, I know you also put in a lot of work in the lead up to your birth, almost to clear the space within the womb and the inner psyche, right, in order to be able to be a parent. What do you guys want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. And it's funny, we've often spoken about, I feel really grateful that our beginning as a family came in what many people perceive as like, later in life, in the sense that I think I gave birth at 37. Yeah, 37. And at the same time, so that's brought me a certain level of consciousness, I think. And as you say, like having done all this work, or I might say the beginning of my work, because then it becomes a lifetime. Before meeting Damian, I think that made us a much better couple. And then it's made me a much better mother. And at the same time, it hasn't made it easier.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think, bringing more awareness to things, it doesn't necessarily make them easier, because you carry more of your own hurt and pain that you see in the world. And at the same time, this philosopher that I love, Ken Wilber, he has this expression, it hurts more, but it bothers you less. it hurts to acknowledge the reality of the kinds of things that you're talking about, the family of origin, and looking into your own experience of childhood and your parents' experience of childhood and all of those things. And at the same time, the more that we carry all of this, we also acknowledge this is just the truth of life.
Yeah.
And so we find ourselves able to carry it. So for me, that experience began, I'm Australian, but I was living in Paris for 11 years, and I took a sabbatical. And in that space, I just gave myself time to explore what was calling to me. And as part of that, I did my yoga teacher training, and I had a really profound meditation experience. The first one of my life, really, of just being without thought and just the bliss of that experience too. And obviously it, triggered something in my brain. And later on that day, I had this sudden recollection of childhood trauma. And, I'm aware of trigger warning as I say this, but trauma of a sexual nature from childhood. And also an understanding that this is part of my lineage. So I'm not the first person in my lineage to experience that. And in fact, it was very passed down to me quite directly. And, as I remember this, it just felt like a lot of things clicked into place. I see, why my childhood was that way, or I see how this person, my family behaved the way that they did. And I see why there was part of me that struggled in relationship, for example, struggled to trust and struggled to feel safe. And through that, I really felt like healing this was the most important thing in my life. And fortunately, a lot aligned in order to give me the space and time to do that. And I've been guided by an incredible therapist based out of New Zealand, Natalie Lascelles, who's specialized in trauma. And is really passionate about the most cutting edge, techniques of trauma healing. So, we spoke about some Gabor Mate and his work. I was into plant medicines as well, and somatic experiencing, Peter Levine, and just I began training with these people myself. And as part of my exploration of wanting to train with the best, I ended up at this coaching certification course in San Francisco where I met my true love. So, it's amazing how what felt at times like a dark journey into my own depths, and the depths that were a part of my family story too, have led to this entirely new chapter, I feel, in my own lineage through my partnership with Damian and to our baby.
Yeah. Beautiful. And now for a quick break. At She Births, we believe that pregnancy, birth, and matrescence, the sacred postpartum, is an awesome rite of passage. Our free holistic pregnancy guide offers you 6 months of weekly support. Drop straight into your inbox, or within our free She Births app, you can get content that will nourish your body, mind, and soul. You can enjoy prenatal yoga videos, great recipes, birth affirmations, course discounts, and more. From me and my team, the creator of the world's only scientifically verified antenatal classes, it is our gift to you. Sign up today and receive the free holistic pregnancy guide at shebirths.com/PG. That's shebirths.com/PG. I want to come back to safety and trust in preparation for birth, because that's such a big issue.
Yes.
When we have sexual trauma histories. But Damian, what was your experience really? What was the preparation that you did through life in the lead up to becoming a dad in 8 days?
Yeah. I felt that we were both well prepared for finding out about the pregnancy and going through the pregnancy and welcoming our son in the world. For me personally, I had been doing very similar work to Cristina. Starting in 2018, I went through a weekend retreat with an organization called the Mankind Project, which really just opened my world up, opened my inner world up, is what it did. And I discovered a number of wounds, but also false beliefs that I'd been carrying around in the world, and that started me on a journey of self-discovery and a search for authenticity to find out what was really beneath all of the shoulds, all of the projections that I'd picked up in my life. And the pandemic, in a way, was kind of a blessing in that I went into a cave, and it allowed for a space just to focus on transformation. And so in the year leading up to the pregnancy, I had been doing a lot of work, and I had actually been visited by the spirit of a child.
Really?
Around the same time that Cristina was visited by a snake, I was starting to get visions of a child and a spirit coming into my world. And I remember after one time this happened, I told my friend, it's like, I think I'm ready to be a father. Like, I feel it. There's something that I'm feeling. There's a message that I'm receiving from the universe. And and this kept happening. And about a month before we found out we were pregnant, I had a very strong vision of a generational shift happening, of kind of the generation above me, my grandparents, kind of ending their time in this world, a new energy. I felt a new energy coming into this world. And I felt that I was in the middle of that there was one generation leaving and there was one generation coming in. And then just a few weeks later, the new generation did come in. So I had been doing a lot of work, and I had been just really open. I'd been really open, and I was fortunate that I had the circumstances where I could just listen and receive these messages. And I do feel that it was the spirit of my son, like knocking on the door, letting me know that he was going to come. And when he finally did arrive, I was like, yep, that makes sense. Like, I've been expecting you. We've been waiting.
It's funny, like the language that we use is like Damian says when he finally did arrive. It's like, you know, it's like 8 days. But like, we're like, oh, finally. Yeah. Because you're right. Yeah, it was a lot of preparation.
Yeah, it is. It's the inner work, right? And did you, I mean, I think, like you say, the lockdown, oh man, was such a pressure cooker. But at the same time, it also gave a lot of us caves to go into. I like that. Mm-hmm. But when you saw your boy come into the world, did you have this feeling of meeting souls? Like, you kind of knew there was like for me, it was like this recognition. When I saw him, it was like, oh yeah, that's who you are. I know exactly who 100%. You are now. It was like, here is the physical manifestation of all the feelings I'd been having, you know, in my inner world.
100%. Yeah. That was my reflection after the birth of like, gosh, I spent my whole life like wondering. It's like with meeting Damian. I spent my whole life, you just, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? You know, and like, how's life going to unfold? And when I was amazed, like when I think back to previous partners, I always felt this, like when I think of my insides were always a bit like, you know, dancing, you know, like hot on my feet, you know. And when we got together, I just felt so calm. And that was the first recognition, I think, of like, oh, this is, you know, people often describe like love, meeting your love is like your home. I felt so calm inside, and I just felt at home with you. And then similarly, when I met Rio, I was like, oh yeah, it's always been you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so profound. So tangible, intangible, but so tangible, but almost hard to put into words. I think poetry maybe alludes to it a little bit, but absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's the part of birth that is so powerful and that is not, you know, reflected at all in the systems that we have around birth.
No. There's no sacredness. Yeah, there's no, and that's the I mean, it's just amazing that you were connected to that longing and went looking for that longing. I think I remember feeling that longing, and there was a midwife I wanted, and I wasn't really sure, but I wanted her because she did kind of emanate that sense of care, but she was deregistered. There'd been like some case against her, you know, and she was like the one that we all wanted, but we didn't really understand why.
Mm-hmm.
And so should we jump into like the birth, or do you want to talk a little bit about how feeling safe with Damian is there, but then coming from a childhood experiences of trauma, like feeling safe in birth is often a big challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, actually, as you say that, I realized like, oh, is that why I was so oriented around education? Yeah, I guess I hadn't really put those two pieces together. But I am someone who really cares a lot about learning about life, and learning from others. And so the educational piece for me was absolutely being locked in with my pregnancy experience. And I've had girlfriends say, I actually chose to do no birth education. And I just found a doctor that I felt very comfortable with, and I put my trust in the doctor. And, you know, part of what I've learned through this experience is just to like unconditional honoring of other women and their experiences. And at the same time, there's part of me that thinks I can't relate to that. I can't relate to not being curious about one's own experience. And for me, it was very empowering to learn about what I'm going through, and to hear stories. And when I think about, you know, time immemorial, like how women have been initiated into this experience, you know, because I keep coming back to this expression of birth as an initiation. You know, I think the way that we do it these days is very isolated. You know, I feel that deep in my bones of the wrongness of going through it for the first time myself.
Yeah.
You know, for me, what feels right in my bones is like being there for my girlfriends through their pregnancies, being there for their births, you know, holding their babies when they're born, and knowing the experience viscerally through attending to the women around me, and the grandmas, you know, who've birthed their generation and then seen generations go on. And just that sisterhood is what feels right for me. And so there's something for me in the educational piece that felt like the writing of history of like, okay, now things feel better because I'm hearing and learning from other women. Yeah. And at the same time, you know, you make a very good point. Like maybe I was just looking for a sense of safety. Maybe not, maybe just is not the right thing to say. Maybe one of the things that was fulfilling for me was a sense of safety, in the unknown.
Yeah.
Maybe it is part of the seeking for control in the chaos that is birth. But by doing that, also it kind of turned on something intuitive for me, where as I learned about birth and I started to perceive birth as an opening and as a letting go, I felt really strongly that anything that was inside of me that I was holding back from Damian, I needed to find the courage to express. And so, you know, part of the preparation for birth, I'm sure you remember, honey, was like, you know, me having these things kind of bubble up inside me and just having these moments of coming together and like, you know, really moving through my own vulnerability of like, oh, there's this thing that I'm scared to tell you, or this thing that I'm feeling and I'm afraid to say. And you're just holding space for me, and not just space, but holding me through all of that. And each time that you met me in my opening, I felt more and more prepared for birth. And I had always felt that our birth was, you know, just the way I describe it, our birth For me, it was about the two of us together. And I was so grateful that you were, deeply invested in education as well, so that you had the ability to hold me actually through that process. And I felt the intimacy of it. At the same time, I think of a girlfriend who was saying, she's also ended up with a home birth. I ended up choosing a home birth. She said, for me, when I think about the birth, I just want to be alone in a room, and my husband and the midwife outside, and I'll just call them if I need. And I was like, wow, for me, it's so different. For me, I see us together, going through this together. And and then I think about the babies that we have. My girlfriend's baby, he doesn't really like to be, he's not a co-sleeping kind of guy. He's not like a, wanting to be held all the time kind of guy. He actually like pushes away from her, like wants his space a bit. And, our guy is like super social and, and I just wonder, like, something that perhaps we don't talk about very much is like when you're pregnant, you are two consciousness. Yeah. Two consciousnesses as one.
Absolutely.
I'm feeling my own longings, and I'm also I'm holding Rio's spirit in my awareness. And I still feel, he's 10 months old. I still feel that's true. And I wonder if that'll ever change. I mean, you can tell me many years down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of traditions like the Steiner tradition and others that talk about, excuse the dogs shaking in the background, how a mother and child will share the one electromagnetic field for at least the 5-year mark, as far as I understand. And even, in fact, that a child's individual soul is not really embodying until their milk teeth have, like, come out and the adult teeth. Like, it's quite, from the milk teeth to the adult teeth beginning, like there's a transition of embodiment in individual soul. So, but I definitely know exactly what you mean.
I just knew that was our way forward. And we were living on a houseboat in Sausalito. And it was just so magical to be living on the water. And our son's name is Rio, which is Spanish for river. Yeah, and I just felt like this is the right thing for our boy. And at the same time, I'm totally open to that being different for a future pregnancy. I feel like I was really trying to intuit, how does our boy want to be born? Yeah. And to open up the way for that experience for him.
Yeah, beautiful. And so, did you have a 4-hour labor?
Did I have an orgasm? That's really the question.
The question that matters. Was it painful? Orgasmic?
I had what I would describe as a beautiful birth, and at the same time, I felt like I was in hell at times. I went into labor, and when you get to the point where the contractions are close enough that you're supposed to call for help, I was like, I can totally do this. Like the contractions were not so painful, and I could just hang on these things that we'd suspended from the ceiling, and like I felt like I had the tools to be able to move my body through the contractions and stuff. And so Maria came over, and she was like, this is so early in labor. I was like bouncing off the walls. I was like, oh my God, I've done all this prep. I'm totally going to be able to do this. She was like, it's going to get so much more serious. Yeah. And so that's when you kind of took over the communication with Maria, and she just said, like, the mood is going to change. Things are going to feel scary and serious. And that's when you're moving into active labor. So that's when you'll know. So she had come over to, she checked me and she said, that you're about 2 centimeters, and said, go away and go for a walk and all these things, and came back hours later and I was still in like 3 centimeters and like nothing was happening. And so she went home and she said, call me when things get dark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you start playing Leonard Cohen's final song? You Want It Darker?
No, we'll have to put that on the birth list next time.
Yeah, that's on. I don't think I put it on the She Births playlist, but I've definitely played that at births. Absolutely.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Yeah, it is good.
I want to tell the next bit, baby, because that's when you're more conscious than me.
Yeah, and tying it together with the preparation that we've been doing leading up to the birth, one of the things that Cristina and I really focus on was, creating an openness, so that both in our relationship and really focusing on Cristina, so that Cristina could both physically and spiritually open and allow our baby to enter. And so, what Cristina was talking about around feeling, safety and connection between us, we were clearing everything out so that nothing would be in the way of opening. And when Cristina went into labor, my main focus was on, keeping that openness going in our little container on our houseboat, just continuing to open, because I felt that, I was unexpectedly put into this role of, being the main support for Cristina. And luckily I'd done your course, Nadine. And so I had some tools, I had some preparation. But even still, I felt like, wow, like I kind of forgot everything, and it was just like instinctual. And I just felt like, okay, like what Cristina needs, like I can feel what Cristina needs. And we need to like just open, and we need to relax, and we need to allow. Like I felt like I was there to help Cristina just dissolve into this, despite all of the pain and the difficulty. And really, like I can't even imagine. I was there and witnessing it, and I cannot imagine how difficult it was. But I was there as just like, get through this contraction, continue to open, continue to allow, and continue to create this space for our son to come out.
Yeah, and as things got harder and harder, I for each contraction, I would say no, no, no. And you would come over and you were with me for every contraction and would say, yes, yes, yes. And that was so helpful.
Yeah. Every time there was a contraction, I'd squeeze Christina's hips, I'd rub her back, I'd let her lean on me. And as she was going through the pain and the wave, I just say to her, yes, yes, yes. And it was just kind of an incantation through the hours that followed, just yes, 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 and an opening of yes for the birth.
So it had started, the first contractions had started at 3 a.m. Maria had come over around midday and gone home. And then around 7 p.m., this darkness.
Around 7, it started getting serious. Yeah. The contractions were much closer together and much more stable. And just more painful.
Yeah.
And so I called Maria to come over around 6. She got to our boat around 7. And then she checked you, right? She checked to see how far along you were. And we thought, we got to be like pretty far along. Like we've been in this, has been pretty difficult. Like, let us know how far along we are. So
and it was 7 hours since the last time that she checked me. And I had budged about 0.5 centimeter. And I was completely devastated. And she just sat with me on the couch and said, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. And I truly felt like, no one told me. I swear to God, that's what I thought.
Fucking birth educator, what was she talking about?
All those books and all those hours and hours of shivers.
Absolutely.
I really felt like
no one can tell you. That is the point. It's true.
Yeah.
No one can tell you because it's you. It's only you that can see you in the moment. Yeah. And it's all coming forth for you, from you, through you. It is you.
And the hard thing that she said was, with a first birth, is normally about 36 hours of labor. And so I think you should expect from this point another 24 hours.
Oh my God.
And I was already in hell. And you talk about the dark moments in birth, like this was that bridge, into the total surrender of like, I'm fucked. And, I know that for some people breathing is amazing and they can have amazing births and, the pain, like acupuncture or whatever. For me, none of that. Like the idea of controlling my breath in a contraction, like that was so not intuitive to me. And I just feel I had to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Damian, if I have another 24 hours like this, I do not know how you are going to help me to not have an epidural. And I remember I told you, like, go and take a break. Like Maria told you, go and take a break. And Maria was with me for the contractions. Damian just was in the bedroom for a while. And we just had to accept that this was going to be it. And Maria said, we're just going to take it one contraction at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think about 24 hours.
Yeah. So even though she told you the 24 hours thing and your experience was of hell, why didn't you go for the epidural? What was it that made you stay on the boat and keep going? Sorry, spoiler alert, but like, what was the...
No idea.
What was the calling? What was the commitment? Like, was it commitment? Was it the calling? Was it Maria holding Damian holding you? Like,
you know what? I'll tell you one thing that was really powerful for me. When Maria said it was going to be another 24 hours, I remember looking at her and saying, like, are you going to stay? And she was like, yep. And that kind of brings tears to my eyes because I think comparing that to like a hospital experience of like, okay, I'm going to come back in this time, I'm going to come back in that time. Like,
well, that midwife goes. That midwife goes. And then 12 hours later, you have someone else.
Yeah.
If they're really busy, they're with someone else, who's laboring faster, who's delivering sooner, so yeah.
And I've often thought about this word, midwife, doesn't meaning with woman, right? And Maria was with me.
Yeah. I think that's a big, powerful crossroads moment there, because I really believe, how you were saying, like, we're not meant to be isolated through this whole journey. And that's absolutely true. And I think we're also meant to have these archetypal women holding birthing wisdom with us. The subconscious is looking for that desperately, all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's innate, it's normal.
Yeah, I did feel very held. I felt held by you and I felt held by Maria, and I had trust. And I knew that if we went to the hospital, that would be very different, just a very different experience. And when you first asked this question of like, why did you keep going? My answer was, I have no idea. And, I think in a way that's my way of answering, like, just because this was just the truth of my experience. Like, I stayed because I stayed, I didn't give up because I didn't give up. Like, for whatever reason, these are our circumstances, and that was just the truth. Right.
And there was obviously a part of her, that believed in you to be able to go that extra 24 hours, right?
Well, you're right. I mean, and I'm sure this is what people experience with you and with other doulas. It's like, they've seen this so many times before and they know that I can do it.
Yeah, because a responsible midwife and doula, and I've been there and I've done it myself, can tell when someone is stuck in, because I myself was stuck in that with Leroy's birth. I flipped into that pathological pain spiral, that fear, tension, pain spiral. And it's really hard, like on the back of, 36 hours of labor already, to go into fear, tension, pain, and then to somehow switch out of that without an epidural, I can tell you.
Yes.
It's like on the top of like complete exhaustion, unless by some grace of God. And sometimes it happens like, okay, we're going to get the epidural, or we're going to transfer to hospital. And in that surrender, boom, the baby can arrive. Like all of a sudden you go from 2 to 10 and a few pushes and the baby's out. Or, okay, surrender, like a complete surrender will happen. So what happened for you? What happened from that moment?
Exactly that.
Oh, right.
Exactly that. Maria said, go lay down. And, that worked for a second, but I couldn't lay down.
No.
And then, I was ready to have a shower. I hadn't had one, and I knew that was, going to be really helpful. And we did. Damian was there with me, and just there was something in the intimacy as well of that was really powerful. And yeah, Maria said that she noticed a shift at that point, and she could see that things were really moving again. So it was 7 p.m. when we had that really dark moment. And at 11 p.m. she said, do you want me to check you again? And I said, yes. And I was 9 centimeters.
Amazing.
And she told me that, and we didn't have the bar set up or anything. And I felt like I wanted to give birth in the water. And then it was like all action. And I was
so exciting. So exciting.
I felt like I could tell Maria was freaking out that she wasn't going to get the bath ready in time. And she had assistants coming, and she's calling the assistants, and they're across the bridge on the other side of San Francisco. I mean, in the city of San Francisco. And like, then I just felt like, oh, it's happening. Our boy's coming. And I just felt everybody getting things ready around me. And I felt so fulfilled to know that they had to be in such a hurry, because I was already 10 steps ahead, me and Rio and my body. And that they were trying to catch up with me, just the way that the tables had turned. I was like, oh, I just like have this, big breath as I tell you that, like just the relief. And then, honey, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, the 4 hours between 7 and 11, 7 when we got the news that, be prepared for another 24 hours or more of this, to 11 when we got the news that, okay, let's fill up the bath and get ready for the next steps. That was a really dark point for me too. It's nowhere near as hard for me, but still the emotional labor for me of, seeing Cristina go through these contractions and see the pain that she's in and trying to find a way to support her. I wasn't prepared for how hard it was going to be for her or for me. And, and it's just one of those things that I wouldn't know until I've gone through it. You might be able to like tell me and explain it, but I won't really know until I live it. And I think that both of us just had to surrender into that feeling of like, this is just it. This is what it is. It's not what we were expecting. It's harder than we thought it would be. And like, this is what we're going through. And all we can do is take it like one step, one contraction at a time, and just focus on that and do my best for that one contraction, be there for you for that one contraction, and then be there for you again on the next contraction until we get through this. But it was a huge relief 4 hours later when we found out that, okay, let's get ready, like gonna get ready for pushing. I think we were very lucky in that, we had only 4 hours of that dark place of uncertainty. I know other families can be in that for much longer. So I consider us lucky in that. But it is still, I don't know how often men feel this, but the fear and uncertainty that I felt being in there with her, like I hadn't expected that. There's a sense of disempowerment on my end. Like I can't do anything. Like this is completely out of my hands. I'll do what I can as a support, but this is all Cristina, and I just have to be there for her.
That's right. We get tools, we get information, we try our best, but ultimately, yeah, you are just being there. That's it, right?
And I think that's important, like reckoning with your own powerlessness in that, in every other aspect of life. There's something that you can do, but in birth, it's like the partner. Yeah, to reckon with your own powerlessness.
And now for a quick break. Contrary to popular culture, She Births believes that childbirth can be the best day of your life. It is designed perfectly to be empowering, enriching, and bonding. An awesome rite of passage. Our childbirth education programs have helped thousands of families around the world since 2008, allowing families to not only feel empowered through education, but also connect with their innate birthing wisdom to create the best birth possible and begin their parenting journey with confidence. She Birth's unique methodology was scrutinised in university trials and has been published in the British Medical Journal for improving birth outcomes for both mother and child. I'd like to invite you to begin preparing for birth today. Just go to shebirths.com to discover our 2-day weekend face-to-face courses or access the online courses from anywhere around the world. That's shebirths.com. Create your beautiful birth with the world's only scientifically verified antenatal classes. I think the power is in as well just being with what is. And that's what I hear you guys really, the big portal of surrender, the big acceleration that came was from the big surrender to what is. So this is what is. I'm not going to try and analyze my way out of it. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to ruminate on it. I'm just going to be fully in the moment with what is. And I think that develops in us like a true depth and embodiment of presence. And that's who you want to be as a parent, because that's who you're being when they're screaming in the middle of the night and when they're, chucking tantrums in the middle of Kmart, and true embodied deep presence, and these are some of the inner gifts and superpowers that we are receiving. And yeah, even though people do have dark experiences in birth, it's almost the majority of people are having externalized dark experiences through systemic trauma and imposed upon them those dark moments. Whereas yours was purely from within. It had been crafted like a medicine journey from your own psyche. In order to deliver you to, I hear presence. That's what I hear as the gift from that experience. What do you guys feel like was the gift from it?
I feel very connected now to my sense of power in myself and my strength. And I think, nature is beautiful in that that's how birth is designed, right? When I hear you describing like these difficult moments in parenthood, like you're hearing your kid cry really is like nails on the chalkboard, and that's going to happen, for the rest of your life. And being able to steady yourself in that moment, is what we need to do as parents. And having gone through birth in the way that we were fortunate that birth unfolded, cultivated the beginnings of those qualities, I feel, in me and in both of us. And at the same time, it's also alongside the power and the strength that I feel in myself now, I also feel the softening. And it's like the softening to the surrender of life and softening to other people's experiences, to my own experiences, like just the opening of compassion at the same time. And my hope for all women and people who give birth is on the other side to feel a softening towards all people, but especially those who've been through it alongside you. You know, I think this is the shift, you know, that we talk about from like maiden to mother as well. As like, I think in maidenhood, there's a lot of competition amongst women, which, you know, from an evolutionary sense makes sense, right? Of like, we're trying to ensure our own survival in the best way. And that's also, since the beginning of time, you know, through our partnerships. And so other women are competition in that. And in this shift into mother, I've just felt all of that melt away and just be replaced by this beautiful sense of sisterhood. And, you know, I'll only know what you went through if you tell me, you know, and it'll be perfect in its own way. You'll listen to yourself at the right moments, and that'll be the wisdom, you know, that you hold then through your experiences. And so there's, to me, a deep softening alongside this strength, and I just feel like the stepping forward in life, but with a softness and a love.
Yeah, that's the yang and the yin, and I love hearing that, because to me that, you know, that maiden to mother transition, and we were talking about it the other day, like really becoming a mother is like just stepping more towards crone, like wise woman, wild woman.
Yes.
And to see it in that continuum, I think really helps my brain to realize it's, you know, it's circular, it's not linear, like spectrums that tend to be described in reductionist ways. But what you are doing through birth is, yes, strengthening this sense of power, but also that softening. So developing healthy feminine and healthy masculine, you know, really the two in a
each of
healthy way.
us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to come in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, with regards to the gifts of this, of going through this initiation, like I think, Nadine, what you shared earlier about just like being with what is, that for me was a big lesson. Is just like, I can only be with this. There's nothing else I can really do in this situation. And the interesting thing is that sense of only being with this experience, it doesn't end once Rio comes out. It continues for a very long time. All I can do is be with this. You know, when he's crying and he can't sleep and I'm tired, all I can do is just be with this. And being a new parent, I can just be with it. And there's moments of absolute bliss, and there's moments of fear, and just difficulty. And I can just be with all that. And so the labor and getting through that, I'm just continuing to learn to just be with the experience that's in front of me. Yeah. How beautiful. Love it. I love it. So what happened? Bath got filled up.
I was like, are we going to go back to it? Because
we talk like a girl. We go around in circles on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah. So once I was in the bath, that really helped, just like you said it would. And Maria's helpers arrived. And there was a point where Maria said, you know, Christina, the next thing is for you to tell me when you feel the urge to push. And I started feeling that. And she said, okay, you know, when you feel it, don't push. I was like, what? And I have to say, one thing that was super helpful for me in the learning experience was to hear about the fetal ejection reflex. And I have a girlfriend, Tegan, who was the only woman that I knew who'd had a home birth. And she had described this in a way that I just totally understood it from the way she said it. She said, you know, she was like, it's like vomiting. So like, if you want to make yourself vomit and you're like, okay, I'm going to push it out from my stomach or whatever, you know, I've got all these different, it's going to be so freaking hard. She's like, when your body wants to vomit, it'll just do it. and it's not you, and you're not consciously trying. And from her saying that, I was like, oh, I get it. Like, is that how the baby's going to come out, And so there was a point when Maria said, okay, I'm just waiting now for the fetal ejection reflex, And I was like, I was just so relieved that I could trust my body, and that Maria wanted to trust my body to let the baby come out in that way. And right before the first time that happened, I said, okay, it's happening. It's amazing to me to think that this feeling in my body, the sensation that I'd never had before, I absolutely knew that that's what it was when it was coming on.
Yeah.
And that's how he came. It was maybe, I want to say, like 6 times.
Yeah, it was about 6 rounds of pushing. It went pretty quick.
But what Damian describes as pushing is, this ejection reflex. It's just my whole, like the train coming through the station, as they say, like just my whole body doing it.
Yeah, that was really exciting. Christina's in the tub and I'm behind her, and she's kind of leaning back in the tub, and I just have my arms on her, and she's kind of resting on me, and I can see the crown of the head coming. It's a really exciting moment. It's like, oh, his head's like starting to come out, and then it'll go back in, and it'll come out, and it'll pop out, and it happened within, I think, 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
He came out.
And Maria said, she said, put your hands down so you can feel him. But what was happening was I was tearing, and the pain from the tearing was so intense that at that time, I just went into this other, like another round of like, God, I can't do it. Like, and I really did think, like, we're going to have to think of a different way to get this out. No, it's like already crowding, and I'm like, how about the hospital now? But Maria said, Cristina, when it happens, push him out, and I knew from her depth of experience that she knew that I could get him out like the next time, and she told me, reach down with your hands and welcome you.
Yeah. It's so powerful, right? Yeah. Like big prize.
Yeah, and we had this idea that birth is so traumatic. Like, I cringe when I think about the baby coming out, and then everybody like rubbing the baby with a towel or whatever, and just like all of the intense noise and everybody, just like we'd spoken beforehand about like, he's going through so much. I just want quiet when he comes out, and we had that. But what surprised us was he was so calm.
He was the calmest one in the room when he came out.
We felt electric from it all. But he just opened his eyes, and we held him there in the water. Damian came in the bath. The water was completely clear. I don't know how this happened. He had no vernix. And Damian sat in the bath with me, and we held him. And
he just looked around. He looked around the room, and kind of like we could see his eyes just scanning, and he was taking everything in. And it was beautiful. He just so calm, and almost as if like, oh, like he'd just been waiting to come and be with us, and he was just there.
Mm-hmm.
It was so beautiful.
Like,
amazing.
Oh, this is life.
Yeah.
This is life. Let me just take it in.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Yeah. So he was born at 1:01, and by 4 a.m. everybody cleared out, and it was just the 3 of us. And then I got to say, the birth continued. It wasn't just sinking into the bliss of being the 3 of us. There were more and more and more personal challenges to move through. The initiation just kept happening. And in our case, it was because I didn't have enough milk for him. And so in the days after the birth, we kept saying to our caregivers, he's unhappier and unhappier and unhappier.
Yeah, he's not sleeping well. We don't know what it is.
Wow.
We can't soothe him.
Mm-hmm.
And just the devastation for new parents, any new parent. Why can't I care for my baby? Why is my baby just crying? And I think, the families whose baby has colic and, in a way, I think, what do we even mean when we say that? But like, baby cries and can't settle. And, for some families, this goes on for months. And for us, it was about a week. And then our lactation consultant did a weighted feed and realized he was only getting half of the milk that he needed. And so I had a ton of issues with breastfeeding. It was not just getting the supply, but also intense pain with breastfeeding. And that continued, the pain. It was like being sliced with a knife every time he suckled. And that continued for 9 weeks.
Wow.
And I've never really gotten over my fear that my supply isn't going to be enough for him.
Yeah.
So, it was triple feeding, which, for people who might not know what that is, it's feeding the baby and then pumping and then feeding the milk from the pump in the bottle to the baby. So, it's for the mother, it's 3 times that you're going through the breastfeeding, which is taking up 25% of your body's energy. And so I was doing that for 8 hours a day. And, I didn't sleep for 5 days, but then I fed him every 2 hours for 8 months.
Oh my God.
So I actually, there's something a bit liminal to me about the pregnancy experience.
Yeah.
You're in an altered state of consciousness that perhaps peaks at the birth, but I don't feel like I came back to, this world of like feeling the ground under my feet and feeling like I can converse with people in the way that I had known, previously for 9 months when I actually started getting more sleep. And I noticed a shift in Rio as well. I noticed him just being more of an individual, perhaps, being less part of my body and system. But the journey for me in that was like accepting that stage of motherhood as the total surrender of my own needs for the needs of our boy, and finding my way back from that to having some semblance of self. Yeah.
I really just want to come over and like cook up like bone broths and put you back into bed and just like restore, replete, replenish, collagen, nutrients, macro, like the whole lot,
The funny joke is the way you make more milk is rest and nutrition and, all these cute things that you actually don't get as a new mother, definitely as a new mother without family around. And when we found out what was happening with my milk, I called Mum and said, we need you. And I had this idea that it was going to be just the 3 of us. I really wanted the sacredness of that first month, just the 3 of us getting to know one another. Yeah, and she jumped on the plane. She was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big help. The first couple months were really hard. There was a lot of fear. Rio, we were constantly stressing over, is he getting enough to eat? His weight, we were weighing him daily. trying to track to see if he was getting enough food. Yeah, in the percentile wise, he was in the teens. He dipped like below 15% in terms of weight. So we were worried, and it was just every day trying to every time we saw one percentile tick up, we would celebrate because we knew that he was getting heavier, putting on weight. And it was like that for months, just like hoping and working towards this one goal, the whole family working towards this one goal of him getting fed. That was really, really hard. It's true. It's not until recently that we've kind of moved past that, but we were in that space for a long time.
Yeah. I can feel it's still a shift happening. There's still letting go, isn't there, of that big, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think, this is what I felt at that time. Like, this is where I felt like we don't tell these stories enough. Maybe we do tell these stories. And certainly the podcasts that I've listened to of your community have been really helpful. And at the same time, like, as I started talking with my girlfriends and saying, like, I don't have enough milk, like, it's devastating. And I feel grief. I feel grief that helps me to understand a woman's grief through miscarriage, for example, or through, a baby being in the NICU. Like, it's that level of grief of, like, for me, it felt like, why can't my body do what my baby needs? And as I spoke with other women, some of my girlfriends said, like, oh, I had that too. And I was like, damn, girlfriend, I didn't know it. Like, why do I know you, but I don't know that experience that you went through? And I had one girlfriend tell me, I don't think we want to scare pregnant women. And I thought of this morning as I was reading that article about the birth trauma being the commission in Australia. And one of the advocates saying, stop infantilizing women. And that's how I feel as well. Like, we have to stop infantilizing one another. Like, if I feel we're not going to want a baby for a rational reason. You want a baby because it's deep in you, or because it's just the truth of your life and what you're called to do, or because we don't know, is the baby calling to you? Or these are the reasons that we end up with babies. It's not because we think it's going to be like a smooth ride, and we're gonna spend tons of money and tons of energy and reorient our whole lives, and we do that because of something deep, I feel. And it's not a betrayal of women to tell other women our stories, to normalize these experiences. On the contrary, I feel the betrayal is in not telling.
Yeah. Well, it's two sides to the coin. Like, you have to tell for sure, but we also have to make sure that women have access to support.
Yes.
So many people just don't.
Yes.
And you had access and resources, and it was still hard, right? But
yes,
most people would just have given up, for sure.
Yeah. And I felt the similarity between the birth and
because they didn't have, there's a pattern there, right? But most people do not have access to great support and resources to do it.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, as well, most women in America go back to work, don't they, at like 4 weeks or something horrific?
So 25% of women in America go back to work after 2 weeks.
After 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's horrific.
It is horrific. It's deeply traumatizing for the woman, deeply traumatizing for the child.
Yeah.
And I want to add, this is happening because they are obliged to work in order to support themselves. I mean, this is the thing about America.
Yeah.
There's land of opportunity. You can create a lot of opportunity for yourself. You can create business there. And at the same time, no one's going to save you if you don't.
Yeah. Dog eat dog, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what have been the teachings from this postpartum period? What have you discovered?
Yeah. I could only say that it's just more surrender. And it's shifted my understanding of birth. I really feel that deeply when I say the birth continued. And if I think about, like, yes, it continued in the sense that I still had to work very hard to bring Rio into this world. He's so chubby today. And I often feel like saying to people, Mommy works hard for that. And it's not just me, it's also Damian. While I was pumping, Damian was feeding him the bottle from the last time that I pumped, and all day, all night. And I'd underestimated that bringing a baby into the world is not the birth. And I think of it, I was just saying the other day, I understand it as 18 years or 21 years now. Because as soon as, he's going to be dependent on us as long as we have him.
Mm-hmm.
And when we don't have him anymore, that's when he doesn't need us. So we're still in this process.
You still call
so long as we
mom.
We're still in this process so long as we have him. So I think it's about accepting that that's what parenthood is.
Yeah.
Just it being constant trials and tribulations as that being the nature of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as it's not, as soon as you can breathe because they can take care of themselves, and you're the first person to be able to speak to this, then they fly off on their own. Mm-hmm. So how do we be happy in that? Mm-hmm. How do we be worried about them and also happy? And what, something I notice in myself now is, like, if I were to encapsulate the experience of parenthood, for me, it's like by about 5 p.m. each day, I'm like, okay, now we're about to wind down, and then I'm going to get to put him down, and then, like, just chill, and I'm a bit like, oh, it's going to be good when it's 7 and I can put him down. As soon as I put him down, I cannot wait to go and get him again in the morning.
That's so good.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. I'll have friends often ask me, like, well, what's it like, being a new parent? And oftentimes my response is, man, it sucks so hard, and I wouldn't change anything about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, the big lesson is just, like, living with this dissonance of it's so challenging, it can be so difficult, and it is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm often holding two opposite poles at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't change it. As hard as it is, for all the difficulties that we had, I wouldn't change it, because to be able to look at my son and to see him smile and to see him start to walk, nothing is more beautiful for me. Yeah,
and I think what you say is very true of life itself. To come back to, like, what started me into this much deeper, much richer experience of life is, it's sudden recollection of trauma. And you're like, I had no idea that I was holding darkness, and that there has been such pain in my life. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, there's, that piece brought me to deeper understanding of myself, deeper connection with my own compassion, with the issues, in our times, trauma healing that is happening on a collective level, reckoning with racial justice and climate justice, and then brought me to you and brought me to our boy. And, I think this is just what life is, of being with both the challenge and the beauty of it, and accepting this is my contract that I signed up to when I came, just like Ria did, for this experience of life on earth. And just as you say, being with all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a really, really beautiful shit show.
Exactly. Yeah, quite literally, oftentimes.
I've just so loved hearing your story and your inner experiences. Thank you for sharing your vulnerable selves, your hearts and your souls, and your intimacy, and your wisdom, and your intelligence. Really super grateful to have had this conversation.
I really honor you in your role of supporting women and babies and families. Mm-hmm. But for me, I feel so passionate about women who support women. I feel like you got it. You've got it. You understood, and it's so powerful. And I deeply honor the role that you play. Great symphony.
Yeah, thank you, Nadine. Thank you for everything you've given us and everything you just give to the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You guys are like my poster child for the inner work. The inner work. This is so much I think this conversation is happening now at the beginning of, sorry, the dog's shaking their collars, but yeah, my book should be coming back this week. I'm so anxious about it. And what the editor has said, but so much of the work I want to go into now is about how do we do this inner work, to prepare, and how do we birth ourselves on the other side. So, yeah, I think it's a very perfect combo. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And we're here for you, just to support you in doing that. Beautiful to be alongside you.
I'm Nadine Richardson, and you've been listening to the She Births Show. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you would like to hear more of. You can find me and my team of amazing doulas and educators at shebirths.com and our awesome community on Instagram and Facebook. Within any good app store, you can download our free pregnancy guide via She Births, 2 separate words and plural, as well as access our range of online courses. Remember, when it comes to having a better birth, an easier transition into parenthood, your education is your empowerment. Don't forget to check out the catalogue of previous podcasts, and thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the show.